This episode is brought to you by podiatrygrowth.com/podpatrol.
So for the Pod Patrol listeners, what should they do to take advantage of the assistance that you can provide?
I worked with Jeff here to create a 5-day email course talking about 5 different systems that are going to help you drill down on what's important as far as gaining new patients. And if people enjoy that, I always have the option of 30-minute free strategy session where we kind of go over what people's current challenges are.
So a 5-email introductory course. That sounds expensive. What are we paying for that? $1,000, $10,000? What are people going to expect to pay for that introductory course for them?
Yeah, this is a free gift to my colleagues. Just gives you an opportunity to do a bit of a self-assessment.
If anyone's interested in more information, they can go to podiatrygrowth.com/podpatrol.
Podiatrygrowth.com. Every step matters. Pod Patrol. Pod Patrol. Pod Patrol. Every step matters. Feet hit the ground, we rise, we climb. Ain't stopping now, it's our time to shine. Turn it up loud. Pod Patrol. Pod Patrol. Pod Patrol. Pod Patrol. Every step matters.
All right, welcome back to Pod Patrol with your host, Dr. Jeff Dikis. Tonight I'm joined by Dr. Jim McDannald. Thanks for joining me tonight.
I'm excited to be here, Jeff. Looking forward to this show. I enjoyed the first time we got to chat together, and I'm sure this time will be just as exciting, as much fun.
Coming back for round 2, I'm excited as well. So you are the marketing guru. For anybody who didn't catch that first episode or doesn't know much about you, you do host the Podiatry Marketing Podcast. Tell everyone about who you are, where you're at, and your podcast.
No, absolutely. So I'm a Scholl graduate back in the good old days of 2003. Went to the West Coast, Portland Kaiser Legacy for my residency. Had the opportunity to work at a large orthopedic group in Eugene, Oregon for about 5 years, but I've always had a writing and marketing background. It's kind of transformed into a marketing background, but I've always enjoyed doing things online. But over the course, basically the last decade, I've kind of made a gradual transition in careers where now I work with private practice podiatrists to build out websites, try to find ways to get more of the kind of patients they want to have come into their practice, try to niche down and really try to focus on, what do they enjoy seeing? What are they the best at in their local area? And then try to get more of those patients in the door. So I started Podiatry Growth back in 2019. And like I said, I provided different types of digital marketing services to try to really kind of niche down and help podiatrists see more of the patients they love.
So talk about your podcast. How long you've been doing that now, and what is the focus of that podcast specifically?
Yeah, so I'd previously done a podcast back in the late 2000s where I'm kind of a runner, kind of running geek by nature, and I had a side project even while I was in practice where I was doing this thing called Track Focus, where I was trying to get a lot of guests from the track and field world on the podcast. And one of the things that I appreciate about you, Jeff, is that it's no easy task to get people's 2 schedules to align, especially when people are busy professionals. So interview shows I found were really, really difficult. But there's a power in a podcast to really share a lot of good, helpful educational information. So I started the Podiatry Marketing Podcast with Tyson Franklin 4 years ago. So he had a relatively successful podcast in his own right with Podiatry Legends, but he's someone that does business coaching both in the U.S., the U.K., and Australia. Has some ideas around marketing, but isn't someone that's necessarily a practitioner. And since I'm the kind of marketing practitioner and we're both podiatrists, it seemed like a great way to kind of work together with someone with podiatry knowledge and really share the ins and outs of what's working, what's not working, ways to relate it to practice growth and not just kind of like generic metrics. Because when people hear marketing, they're thinking about things they either weren't taught in school or they just find it really generic, things like clicks or impressions. That doesn't really mean a lot to us podiatrists, but how can we translate some of these marketing tactics and these visibility tactics to really get eyeballs on a practice to kind of make it grow? So yeah, we're well over 200 episodes now. We've basically released an episode each week for the last 4 years. It's been a lot of fun. Each Tuesday night, we have conversations about a wide range of marketing, growth tactics, but also just, trying to answer simple questions that, will help podiatrists understand their different opportunities, because I think it can be really confusing. It can be almost like people don't know which way to go, like who's BSing them, who's giving them honest, straight up answers. We really wanted to kind of clear that all out. And, when people have specific questions, we'll answer them on the podcast, or we'll do, dedicated episodes to really clarify, what's the BS from the stuff that actually works when it comes to, marketing a practice and helping a practice grow in the right direction.
I think that's fantastic and obviously is super helpful for people because we spend a lot of our time, probably all of our time in school and then residency learning about anatomy. Everyone listening knows what we learn about. I don't need to go through everything we learn about, but surgery and anatomy and all the things, but we really don't spend any time on marketing a practice. That's more of a business model. And maybe some people took a business class. I took a business class or two in undergrad that it's more kind of economics and how to write a business plan, not necessarily how to market, which would obviously be a little bit different angle marketing compared to running or owning a business. But some people do own a business in their podiatry practice, and then they have to turn around and market it because the only way that people are going to come in the door is if they're aware of it. And I think most people understand the old ways of marketing. People listening might be too young to know what the yellow pages are, but people used to open up the yellow pages and find an advertisement or a listing in the yellow pages and give them a call. Now everything is done online. Google handles, I would imagine, the vast majority of searches on a daily basis altogether. And an interesting transition, though, is the advent of AI and ChatGPT and people moving some of their searches from Google to ChatGPT. Let's go down that path real quick, and we'll circle back to a lot of other things when it comes to marketing or searching for patients, searching for providers in their local community. What transitions have you seen from Google? Is Google still far and away the most dominant search engine that people are using? And what portion are people using with ChatGPT, and what role can that play for people?
No, I think it's definitely something that I'm keeping a close eye on. Right now, Google is still the dominant player when it comes to online visibility. People still trust when they type into Google that they're going to get a great result. So whether it's a podiatrist near me query, or it's something like maybe podiatrist Des Moines, it's something where people are going to trust that they're going to see a map pack. They're going to see 3 or 5 names of podiatrists, and they feel comfortable with that to go to the Google business profile, and then probably either call the clinic from there, or maybe it's what's happening is less likely people are not going to show up on your website as much. So website traffic is down across the board. But it's one of those things where when it comes to AI, you're not kind of limited by these kind of keywords in the search terms. What's going to happen these days, and we've seen basically some evolution of the results when people are making these more, I'd say, like local queries, or who is the best podiatrist in Des Moines, and then you're going to get more specific queries around that. So right now, the best practices are to build out the content for the type of patients you want to have come to your practice, understand the ways they're asking, whether it be Google or these kind of AI chatbots. What are the types of questions they're going to answer, and make sure that you on your website somewhere are addressing these types of questions in the voice of the patient. I think us being podiatrists and people that went to school and residency for over a decade, sometimes we get in our mind about procedures and medical terminology, and we have our own jargon, right? Sometimes we make fun
Yeah.
of marketers for having their own jargon, but what is the grandmother down the street, or your cousin, or a parent of one of your kids, or a parent of one of your kids' friends? Like how would they search for things? So what's happening now with AI, I would say, is that the patient voice, or the prospective patient voice, is becoming more and more important, because they're able to drill down more on those specific types of services, right? Like best podiatry clinic in, 5 minutes from my zip code or my address. Not that you have to build content around that, but it's getting much more specialized when it comes to the types of results that are being shown. Initially, it was really, really, really bad. It's still not great when it comes to ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini to get like a solid, like kind of local pack like you do on regular Google, but it's only a matter of time before that continues to improve. And one last point before I let you jump in is that, obviously Google's kind of a player in the AI space as well. So you have people like Claude and ChatGPT and other, maybe Anthropic and others that are going to partner with some of these lesser either search engines, review sites, these other listings and directories and review sites that maybe for a long time 90% of your traffic's coming from Google. So you don't worry about that, WebMD or that health grades. Like, don't worry about that. Just go Google.
Hmm.
But at some point in time, they're not going to want to pay Google money for access to that data, right? They're going to want to work with maybe Yelp or health grades. So, and one of the things too with the AI is that, there's not showing the same kind of volume. It's not anywhere close to the volume of Google, but you are getting specific answers to specific questions. And there are kind of like lower funnel or people that are more likely to make an appointment with certain terms. So, it's something to be aware of. Like I said, I'm keeping an eye out for the clients that I work with and the podiatrists I work with, but it feels like it's moving that direction. But Google is still by far the most dominant player.
Yeah. Like I said, marketing is tough, but understanding these things is also tough. And that's where someone like you can come in and provide. You're the one that keeps an eye on these things. Maybe I don't have the time as a practice owner to keep tabs on all of these things, because I'm keeping tabs on the latest journal research, new surgical techniques. I'm doing notes and managing my staff and all the 100,000 things that come along with actually running the practice. But marketing is so important, and obviously I'm preaching to the choir there, but if you don't have awareness around your product, then you're not going to have much to do. You could be the best doctor, the best surgically trained doctor in the world, and if people aren't aware of you, that you're not marketing correctly, then you're just going to be sitting there staring at the wall and your skills are going to go unutilized. Historically speaking, what marketing options do people have? Take yourself out of the mix. And obviously, they can do self-marketing. They can handle all the marketing themselves. Maybe they get really good at SEO, search engine optimization, and Google ad campaigns, and understanding the role that AI plays and putting these keywords and all this stuff onto their website so that when the stuff happens behind the scenes, that they are getting all these links and hits and connections, the SEO that's happening behind the scenes. But if they aren't interested in doing it themselves, historically, what other are there marketing firms? What options do people have, or what have they used historically?
Yeah, it seems there's three different categories, I would say, that people, when they kind of run up against that point that they either don't have the time or desire to do it, like what are the ways they're seeking information, right? Like what are the ways that they can, either find someone to do it for themselves or get quality information. I'd say the first kind of line, and it's not really something that not all of them will implement it, but is people will seek out a coach, either like a business coach or a marketing coach in a way. I'm not going to plug anybody's coaching practice, but there's a lot of these kind of coaches out there that
Hmm.
have different levels of marketing ability and knowledge. But that's one place to go. And sometimes those coaches will have, and I don't know how much they have to disclose or how upfront they have to be, but they'll have, relationships with a marketing agency, which is kind of the next category, or a website building company, or maybe an email company that they kind of work with to help get podiatrists some of this information, right? So obviously, it should all be above board. Podiatrists they're in these coaching groups, should be aware of like, what is there an affiliate fee, or is there some kind of financial relationship behind the scenes? I think that's really important from a disclosure standpoint. Like I said, then there's the second step is like agencies. There's like a lot of different marketing agencies, email agencies. Some there's kind of all for one. You have a large organization that's split up between the kind of the CEO, maybe their CTO, there's like salespeople, there's delivery people, there's a large kind of, maybe not large, maybe it's 10 to 15 people or 20-person organization, depending on how many clients they're serving. So that there's that kind of model. And then there's the model that I provide. That's more a one-to-one, working directly with the clinic owner in a way that, you build out, a custom and niche website, and there's kind of one line of communication. So, that's more of a consultant or a boutique agency of like, one person with maybe a few like freelancers to help out fill in some of those gaps. But obviously I'm hugely biased, but those are the kind of three areas that I would say that people, when they're looking for how can I be seen online, those are the kind of three ways they're going to go. Either the coaching, straight up to an agency. If you type in like, podiatry marketing, maybe my podcast and my website's going to show up, and then maybe it's a few other vendors. And then last but not least, like I said, is someone like me who's more of a podiatrist who's actually practiced in clinic, who's now a consultant that does this on a one-to-one basis with podiatry clinic owners.
Yeah, I think the issue with those large organizations, and obviously you and I are biased, we're not hiding that fact, but my issue with those large organizations, and I know it happens not even with podiatry, but just with marketing in general, is when you hire these big companies to build out your website, you pay them an ongoing fee to manage your website, but really they build out this bare bones, terrible, awful website, and then you're just stuck paying. Maybe they change the color of the background every so often, but you're just stuck paying all this money for very little benefit on the back end. My example is, I know someone who's an author and they have a website and they pay this company to manage their website, and they're paying them an exorbitant amount of money every month to quote unquote manage their website. You go to the website, it is bare bones. There's like a few stock photos, a few images on there, a little bio, and that's it. And you're paying for essentially nothing at that point. And it's really kind of, people are getting fleeced is basically what it boils down to. You're not getting return on your investment. So I would consider that a mistake that people make, is going with the wrong marketing or not getting a return on your investment. How do people best monitor or understand that what they're getting for return on their dollar? $1 in, one advertising dollar equals how many dollars on the back end? What's the best way? With Google ads, you could say, okay, you got 100 and whatever impressions and then however many clicks. And then sometimes it's hard to say like, how many converted actual patients walked in the door this week because of that ad that I put out there, versus maybe 50 of them came in because they clicked on your ad, but 49 of them were going to come see you anyways because you're the only person in town or you were the number one rated podiatrist. And really it got you one extra patient. How do people keep any of that stuff straight?
Yeah, I think you're right. There can be kind of a commodity when it comes to different marketing agencies. They're looking to basically copy paste a template on a consistent basis to every clinic. You'll see this with
Right.
different types of providers in podiatry, where it's top 50 diagnoses, top 50 treatments. We've
Yeah.
got your website here. Here's our stock images of like a person grabbing their foot on your homepage. I'm not going to tell you that there's 7 other clinics across the U.S. that are not in your geographic location. We're going to do the same thing for you. And
Right.
the ongoing costs associated with are generally, they're going to do maybe some software updates on the back end. Every once in a while, make sure that WordPress and that the plugins are still operational, and your computer's not going to crash. They're going to have some hosting software that does backups, and they're going to assure that the backup is there in case for some reason something's corrupted in an update. So yeah, when you're kind of buying these commoditized things, or even cheap ones, if someone's buying a $250 a month or a $200 a month, which doesn't sound that cheap, but like they're just kind of like letting it ride, right? But I would say that what's different with either some agencies or a consultant like myself is that I meet on a quarterly basis with everyone that I work with and say, okay, like we've done these things over the course of the last quarter. Like, in my perspective, from the numbers I see, X, Y, Z worked really well. A and B were like kind of mediocre, and then D just didn't work out. How are you seeing things on your side? And then try to back that up, like you said, with some. And Google doesn't make it easy, to be honest. So to kind of drill down and say like this number of patients was caused by this advertisement, but you can see what I like to try to do, especially it can be tough when it comes to how do I get a very specific procedure. But when you're kind of trying to become the local expert, you can have these what we call areas we serve pages, and where maybe it's the town where you practice, and it's either the 5 or 10 kind of nearby towns or suburbs or something, and you can see how is that traffic growing over time, and is that then leading to some of those clicks that are what I find is that sometimes people will get a website company and a company that does blogs for them, just blogging for them. and they'll have 200, you'll have 20,000 unique visitors a month, right? Because they have all this like very, I wouldn't say generic blog content, but it's like it's random stuff that maybe 1% of the audience is coming from your local area. So only
Yeah.
99% of the people are not relevant. It's great that they're learning about podiatry, and maybe
Right.
in Singapore or in the UK, they're going to be able to like, someone's going to benefit, the profession might benefit from that. But in order to benefit, you really need to have a local first approach. And I think that's why some of these, people that are doing ongoing marketing services, they're not kind of helping you become that seen as that local expert. It's important to have that built out in a way that's visible on your website. So there's, like we've talked about this in the past, I think, but authentic photos of you in your community treating your ideal patient. And there's those local keywords that are going to help you build trust, hours or even days before the person walks into your clinic. They're going to see the quality of your website, the quality of your marketing. They have an expectation, hopefully a high expectation that you can meet. And you're going to have a very satisfied patient that at the end of it, not only will they be satisfied, but they're willing to share, word of mouth and digital word of mouth about, why Jeff Dikis is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, that's a good thing to get out there into the world. Can you put that on your website? That I'm the best thing to sliced bread?
I can put on the Pod Patrol. I'm happy to like let you have that that testimonial from me, but yeah.
It reminds me of that scene in The Office where Michael's sitting in front of a dry erase board and it says, "You miss all the shots you don't take," or something like that. Wayne Gretzky. And then he like quoted himself quoting Wayne Gretzky. I don't know if you've seen that. If you've seen it, you understand. So let's say that people are stuck in this model of paying some agency, or they have this terrible website that no one's going to, or at least nobody who they want to go to their website. What would be the first thing you would do to come in and kind of redirect them and help them get on a little bit better path?
Yeah, I think the first part is just do like kind of a background and like what I call like an online practice X-ray. So this is something kind of a paid diagnostic. I'm happy to like provide other forms of free scans and kind of give them a little bit of information so they can understand the visibility. But for someone who's really serious about making a change and who's ready to like, they know they need to be doing this. They've been putting it off for a long time, but this is something they need to do. This online practice X-ray, what it does basically is a chance for us to really think strategically, not just what the big bright shiny object that everyone else is doing. We got to have all these social media accounts. Oh, we have to do these things. No, like we got to take a step back. Maybe you already have a lot of patients. I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about marketing, all they're going to hear is like, I can get you 30 new patients in 7 days. I can get you 100 new patients. And like, that's maybe not what they want. Like maybe they don't want more patients. They want the right patients in their practice.
Yeah.
So
that also feels like a scam too. Doesn't that feel scammy? Doesn't that feel like, I don't know. I don't trust those people when they do that. I don't know. Sorry, keep going.
No, for sure. So like the first step with me is like we get on a call, we talk about, what your hopes and your dreams are, what you've done previously, where you live, what do you want to do more of, what are those local communities that, you want to service that are good fit for the type of care you want to provide. So there's a whole questionnaire that's provided with that that I give after that initial phone call that we have. And then after that, we basically will, I'll spend about 7 days kind of doing a deep dive, like looking at, competitors, looking at what your Google Analytics says, what your Google Ads says, if you have that. Take a look at your website. Does it come off as genuine and authentic? Just do a real deep dive along your online presence. And then once I have that information, I can really show the kind of, I understand what the kind of high ROI opportunities are and kind of building out a custom marketing plan. So this online presence is a combination of an assessment of what's going on right now, and then kind of a plan as far as, where you could take this in the future, where those opportunities are to grow with, like I said, not just more patients, but with the right patients. So understanding what your core message is, what you want to get out there, how you want to be seen in your local community, and what are ways that we can work together to make that happen. Because I'm not necessarily a person that just like builds something and goes away. I'm here to kind of test and iterate with the person and kind of, hold your hand or to be with you during this process to make sure that we're making progress in the way that you want to. So, most podiatrists I talk to, they're not, like I said, they're not struggling to fill their schedule. A lot of people are busy, but maybe they're doing, 20 nail trimmings, each day, and they'd rather be in the OR they want to do sports medicine, but they're stuck doing diabetic wounds. Just understand that you are empowered to do the type of care you want to provide. Given that there's enough patients in your local area to do that. Maybe it's never 100% and of that one thing, but you get enough of it to make it a fulfilling drive into clinic, and you're excited when you look at your schedule.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic name for what you're describing there, the online practice X-ray, because anyone listening understands that in order to fix something, you have to understand what the problem is first. And we use X-rays and MRI and lots of other tests to figure out what the problem is. You can't fix anything unless you have the problem identified, and then you work on creating a solution or a plan moving forward. So I think that's a fantastic name for what you're offering, the online practice X-ray. We've talked about it before, but you offer a 5 introductory email course and then a free conversation with people just so they can kind of meet and understand you, which is overly generous, I think, but it kind of lets people understand that you aren't just some faceless marketing agency organization or some online scam who says we'll give you 30 patients in the first month and then takes your money and disappears. Um, but once they've done that introductory email course and they've had a conversation with you, can you explain how that online practice X-ray works and how much it costs and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm happy to give away a ton of like free information. Like I said, I have over 200 episodes of the Podiatry Marketing Podcast. So if people feel like, they're not ready to have someone do it for them yet, you can kind of learn some basics of podiatry and marketing, like on the podcast at podiatrygrowth.com. Also, I have, blog posts. I have guides to marketing, a lot of like how to or how I've done it in the past, so you can learn from me. I'm pretty active like you are on LinkedIn. So, and I'm always open to having, free conversations with my colleagues about these different topics so they can understand and feel like they're educated about their options, because that's why I started doing what I was doing before I kind of gradually transitioned from practice into like what I'm doing now. I had spent some time doing some sports marketing, other stuff, but it was really when I saw the combination of like my skills and experience both in the digital and medical world, where it felt like a great fit, where I could educate my peers and give them an opportunity to feel empowered to make choices out of knowledge and out of like trust, as opposed to like fear. Like, I hate fear-based marketing. I hate like this, like, I know it works sometimes, the urgency and those kind of things, but I hate those things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
With the online practice X-ray, like I said, the first step is just to get on a call with me, and we can, even if you decide you don't want it, we'll basically talk. I'll talk to you about, let you talk a little bit and tell me about, where you're at in your current practice. Do you own your practice? Are you getting ready to buy one? Are you just, straight out of residency? Let's just get a sense of where you're at, and then try to understand where you want to go with it. So, I'm happy to answer and give away as much information as possible in that call, so you feel like, you have an idea about, what those options and opportunities are out there for you, and why, having a constructive, strategic plan to kind of get more of your right kind of fit patients, as opposed to just a lot of volume, makes a lot of sense. So that first step is just a call. Like, there's no obligation. I'm not a, a hard sell. Like I said, I hate urgency and that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's great to have these conversations with my colleagues and help educate. So that's the first step. The second step, if you feel like that's something that's, I feel like I'm the right fit for you, you want to move forward with the online practice X-ray. Usually it's $2,000, but since I like Jeff so much and the Pod Patrol audience, it's $1,000 for this
I
medical.
just saved everyone $1,000. I want letters of appreciation.
Yeah, so basically what you get for that, like I said, it's that first call is free, and then basically what we do is I send out a questionnaire, and it's a pretty in-depth questionnaire that maybe takes you 10 or 15 minutes to fill in, about specifics about your practice. What do you want more of? What do you want less of? Where do you live? What are your goals and aspirations? Some access to some of your channels. Maybe you already have a website, some Google ads, kind of understanding where you are against kind of your local competitors. Are you in the top 3 already? Are you in the bottom? Are you number 20? Like, where are we at, as far as we have a general sense of where you're at with stuff? So getting that assessment is kind of the first part of it. And then the second part of the X-ray is a real clear step-by-step framework and marketing plan. So, maybe, whether I'm the right fit or you want to send this to another agency, like I'm totally okay with that. But this is a document that you have that's in writing as far as what I think those true opportunities are. So whether if we decide we want to work together, it's a great kind of roadmap as far as what we're going to try to achieve each other. If I become the marketing provider for you, and like I said, there's no selling. At that point in time, I'll talk with you about the pricing, what my availability is, what the turnaround is, and those kind of things. You think it's a good fit, if it's a mutual thing, and we can kind of go from there. But like that's what I'm there for, is to really make you feel educated about all your kind of online visibility options when it comes to building out that practice that is most exciting, for you moving forward.
We'll be right back after this. For more information, go to podiatrygrowth.com/podpatrol.
So the people have signed up for the 5-email course and 30-minute free conversation with you to analyze where their marketing needs improvement. What steps can they take next?
Yeah, the next step is a deep dive. It's what I call an online practice x-ray. I look into your Google Analytics, your Google Ads. And then the last part of the online practice x-ray is to provide you high ROI marketing plan. It's a really in-depth diagnostic that will give you a clear direction about what those next steps are to help you grow your practice. This is something I generally charge $2,000 for, but since they're Pod Patrol listeners, we're going to chop that in half and charge $1,000 for this diagnostic. You'll have a written document at the end with the competitor analysis, what you're doing now, and a clear marketing plan to make sure that you can be cost effective when it comes to marketing your practice.
Absolutely. I love to hear that. Paw Patrol listeners are getting 50% off from Jim McDannald, marketing expert at podiatrygrowth.com. If anyone's interested in more information, they can go to podiatrygrowth.com/podpatrol. I want to talk about something that drives me absolutely nuts, and it is the inability for people to comprehend how to utilize their social media accounts to their advantage. Meaning, I see lots and lots of social media accounts on Instagram who are targeting content towards seemingly their local patients. And this drives me absolutely nuts because this is not the platform for direct marketing to their local people. The chance of someone that is going to somehow stumble across their social media account who wasn't already aware of them, and then is going to realize the services that they provide and realize somehow that they then need these services and are going to walk through the door because you put out this local advertising, or they put up these generic like Happy New Year from our practice. And it's like this weirdest thing. Like, who are you talking to? I cannot fathom they're just completely whiffing and striking out and airballing every sports metaphor I could think of with this marketing campaign. What are your thoughts on people using their social media for local marketing? It makes no sense to me.
Well, I'm going to quickly jump into AI. And not only am I seeing the Happy 4th of July, Happy New Year, like on these social accounts, now I'm seeing basically AI slop, just like it's insane on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I guess I guess people feel like they need to like have original content, so they're just putting this garbage up, and it just makes me feel horrible. Like you're I don't think you're ruining your reputation, but you're making yourself look really silly. So to answer your real direct question, there's two things that I think about. Number one is like, if people are hiring a social media agency or someone to put all that stuff up there, stop immediately.
What a waste.
The reason number one is that the 3 people that liked that Happy New Year's post, one's probably your spouse who feels sorry for you, and two are employees of your clinic that are concerned that they know you're going to look at it, and if they don't do it, are they going to have a job next week? I mean, I guess I've heard that it's tough out there to get good medical aids and a good assistance, so maybe they're safe, but like that's the issue. The way that I prefer to use social media accounts, and I think you're similar. I won't speak for you. You can chime in after this, but it's a great way to connect with peers, and it's a great way to show that you're an expert, and not in a braggadocious or show-off way. It's providing value for people. Like you provide a ton of value. Like, I don't know how you are in practice, have a successful practice, do the Pod Patrol show, do Gatekeepers, do all those other lower extreme LER expos, talk at meetings, go to industry events. Like you're one of the people that when I look at the way you're handling your social accounts, like this is what it's for. It's like that's how we met. That's how we collab. We just like you were working with Leland, and I knew Leland a little bit, and then like, well, if Leland thinks Jeff is a good guy, I should maybe just reach out to him. And we didn't know each other like a year and a half ago. Like you were a complete stranger to me. We have never met in real life. But when you have an opportunity to connect with other professionals, whether they be like-minded or someone that has a little bit different vantage point than you do, a perfect example is on LinkedIn. There's like, I call it like podiatry case LinkedIn. Like you get with Jeff Dikis and like Albrecht and like Doug Picazzio and these guys, and even like Nick Strasser, like MDs, foot and ankle guys are all in the mix together. It's an exciting thing. You don't need to have a separate social app. I know that someone else had a nice little social app that did that, but everyone's just doing it on LinkedIn. So I see it's, like I said, number one, build your expertise, grow your network. Not only, those are not platforms, in my opinion, that you should be trying to connect with patients. If you want to do any kind of maybe a little bit of promotion, it should be very narrow paid promotion about services that really benefit patients that are like, aha, like, for example, maybe like Swift Warts, a small targeted campaign that's a paid campaign that lets people know that exists. But beyond a little bit of paid social, people are wasting their time and money by posting those things.
Yeah. The key to my success is that I don't really like my family that much. It's okay. Ashley doesn't listen to the podcast. She has no time for the podcast, so she'll never hear this. So she won't know what I said. Now, there's one distinction there that I want to make, because in my mind, when I was talking about that, I was thinking about Instagram. And even though Instagram and Facebook are both meta products, they're both owned overall by the same company, I do think there might be a small role for some local advertising or local social media stuff on Facebook. Facebook does tend to be more local than Instagram. Instagram, to me, is those things that you said, peer connections and whatever it may be, entertainment or education or whatever it may be. But Facebook, to me, at least here's how I've thought of it, and I'm part of a big multi-specialty clinic now. I don't do any of my own advertising. They handle all that stuff, and I don't have to worry about it. But when I was part of the orthopedic group and I did my own advertising, I thought of Google as the kind of the workhorse. Keep in mind, this is long before ChatGPT. The workhorse of local engagement and getting people who are ready to take action. They are searching for podiatrists near me. They are about ready to take action. Whereas Facebook was more brand awareness, which means if you put an advertisement on Facebook, as people are scrolling through, they might see the name of your company. I'll just say Pod Patrol for now. They'll see Pod Patrol. They'll keep scrolling. And then later, when they stub their toe and think, ow, my toe hurts, maybe they think, oh, what was the name? Oh, Pod Patrol. Yeah, I got to look them up. It's more brand awareness. People don't go to Facebook and say, podiatrist near me. They don't do the searching on Facebook, but there can be a little bit of brand awareness and recognition that occurs through Facebook. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think there is that kind of like, you're trying to be top of mind, right? You're just trying to like be in the conversation and reminding them you exist, even though they might be asking for it, because they are kind of, one is a little bit more extremely relevant. People have a problem. They're looking for a solution. That's your Google search ads or your local service ads that have become a little bit popular on the Google platform. And then, Facebook and other more display forms of advertising are just to like, hey, I'm around, that kind of stuff. One form of marketing that kind of combines those two a little bit, that has kind of some people that already kind of know you, like you, and potentially trust you, is, doing educational emails to your patient list, with permission. Obviously, you want to make sure that the patients give you permission to be emailed. But the benefit of that is that you can really, it's a lot more clearly about how you kind of calculate ROI, right? You can see how many people clicked and made appointments from an email. It's much easier than it is sometimes these black boxes, whether it be Facebook. I mean, Facebook is working, but like, how's it working, right? Or like Google's working, but like they could turn that off any moment. But if you have 15,000 or 20,000 patient emails and permission to contact them. Number one, you can educate them about all the things that you do. So, for example, like I know you do a lot of like, you're probably doing a lot of surgery, Jeff, and maybe you have also an interest in doing some offer procedures, right? So reminding people not only do the ankle arthroscopies or the ankle fractures, but I also do ingrown toenails. So having, it's not, these emails are not just like make appointment, I'm available, open slots. No, it's like educate, because like someone comes in and they had an ankle fracture, maybe their daughter has an ingrown toenail and they didn't know that,
Yeah.
you did that. So when they see that email, it's like, oh my gosh, like Susie has an ingrown toenail, like the guy who fixed my ankle or someone in his practice can take care of it by a
Yeah.
podiatrist. Let's call them. So that's that top of mind. And then it's also like, are you involved in the community, right? Like, did you go work at the local diabetes walk and like have a photo of you and, with permission, your staff or those people to show that you're not
Yeah.
just like, you're not, it's not begging for patients. You're not just like interrupting them. Like you're showing that you do care. You're sponsoring a local soccer team or the youth soccer team or something, or you're doing something to just show that you're an important part of the community. And at the very end, yeah, if you have open opportunities or you want to get more patients, like definitely let them know you have availability, but it shouldn't be, the key is to like provide helpful information to educate the patients that's going to better their lives.
I think that's fantastic advice, and probably an underutilized resource that people aren't taking advantage of, because it happens all the time. You're 100% correct that I'll be doing something. It's exactly what you said, and it goes two directions. I could be doing their ingrown nail, and I talk about, hey, I got to get out of here. I got to go to surgery. And like, you do surgery? Like, well, yeah, I do surgery. And then the opposite, like you said, fix their ankle, and hey, I do other stuff too. I'll treat your wart or whatever it may be. Yeah. Oh yeah, I do that too. And people just don't understand that. Because you can't tell every single patient that you ever see, here's a list of all the things that I see. Keep me in mind. I mean, maybe you could hand them a little pamphlet. Feels a little weird, but making that more passive via an email is a good way to make people aware.
And one other way people I've seen that some private practices have done it, that have the resources, or you're being a larger group, it may not be as applicable to depending if you have to share space with other subspecialty or other specialties. But one way is either have monitors like in waiting rooms or monitors in patient rooms while they're waiting. Hopefully, they're not waiting too long and getting angry to see the same looping video or slideshow multiple times. But that's just a bright shiny object to a human eye is gonna be like, oh, like
Yeah.
there's Dr. Dikis talking about doing an ingrown toenail. There's Dr. Dikis doing a hammer toe surgery, a hammer toe. Well, like I didn't know those things were available. Or it's a list of the things that the clinic does, or that could utilize not only education piece, like I said, but maybe someone's waiting and you're totally backed up. If they see that like you're someone that supports the community, so if they had to wait an extra 15 minutes, they're like, oh, like my son was on that soccer league, and oh, that's Dr. Dikis and his clinic. They support. Like I'm gonna be a little less angry when he shows up 15 minutes late.
Yeah. We do have monitors throughout our building. So we're large multi-specialty, 3 floors of different specialties. And we do have monitors in each section. And what they used to do was just put pictures of the doctors of the department that people were sitting in. And I said, that doesn't make a lot of sense. The people who are already sitting in our waiting room know about us. We need to be putting other specialties on our screens and putting our faces up in family practice or down in physical therapy or wherever it may be, and spread the wealth around a little bit. So certain things like that. If I hadn't have said that, maybe they would have eventually come to that conclusion. But I was the one who was like, hey, no, we need to be utilizing these a little bit differently. So it's one thing to have the screens, but it's another to utilize them appropriately as well.
No, that's really smart.
I think we should go through here. We got a little bit of time left. I want to go through some of these maybe rapid fire things and talk about some of these kind of ideals or these like principles that we had talked about that you had sent me. And I think it'd be interesting for people to hear them, for us to go through them. So first one says, you don't need more patients, you need the right patients.
Yeah. So I kind of touched on this previously. This is kind of, what is your core message and how, like, how is it going to it kind of resonate with patients or, with the podiatrists I work with. I want to make sure that they feel this and they understand this, right? Most podiatrists, like I said, they're not struggling to fill their schedules. They're just struggling to kind of feel like it's maybe 20% of what they want to do, but 80% of stuff that like they'd be okay with someone else taking over, right? So,
Sure.
that's not it's not a marketing failure. That's like a targeting failure or kind of like a filtering failure. So your marketing should really be pulling surgical consults, if that's what you want to do, or cash pay procedures, not just anyone with a foot, right? So if there's ways to you know, kind of niche down in that area, and kind of focus the marketing and focus the website, what you talk about on the website, what you talk about in your marketing, that's going to make a huge impact about the type of patients that still come in. And just because you change, who you're going after, doesn't mean you're going to alienate other people. I think sometimes when people, you're asked, I want to be sports medicine, but I don't want to be that sports medicine right away. I don't want to scare off, 7-year-old grandma who has a hammer toe I've been helping out with. I don't want to like alienate her, but those patients will keep coming. You can just be a
Mhm.
little bit more clear about the types of care you want to provide, and kind of start moving in that direction so you can network with other people in sports medicine. You can talk to the local high school trainers. You can kind of move forward with a type of patient that's going to bring you more joy and satisfaction. Because if you always just get what comes to you and you're being reactive and not proactive, you're going to just feel like the world's happening to you instead of you going out there and making it happen.
Absolutely. Patients decide before they ever call your office. What does that mean?
It means like, when it comes to consumers in general, or, prospective patients, there are like 80%, 87% of consumers use, Google to find local businesses.
Mhm.
But the part that most podiatrists miss is that they're not just finding you on Google, they're kind of making that decision there on Google. They look at your reviews, they look at your photos on your Google business profile, they look at your website, hopefully. And by the time they pick up the phone, they already kind of feel like they have a general sense about you and they've chosen you, or maybe they've chosen a competitor. So, if
Yeah.
your online presence doesn't communicate that, you're a heel pain expert or a MIS bunion specialist or a surgeon or whatever they're looking for, you kind of lost them before you even had a chance.
You didn't go to school to become a marketing director. We talked about that a little bit already, but it's true.
Yeah, at Scholl we had a really good practice management course with like his name is Sev Reineck. He has like a small group within podiatry, that I think he still does some practice management related stuff. I don't think he's at the school anymore, but he's someone that like I learned a little bit there. But honestly, I went to a hospital-based residency at Kaiser Legacy. Fantastic, medical and surgical training. Fantastic, and this is maybe on me a little bit as well. I didn't spend as much time in private offices to understand the billing, to understand like how our because when when you become a podiatrist, or a private practice podiatrist, you have two jobs. You have obviously the most important job is providing excellent care to everyone that walks through those doors, right?
Mhm.
That goes without question. But the second is you're a business owner and you have management of employees. You have to make sure that you're bringing, making revenue, making profit, sustaining your practice is a job in of itself. So, nobody in podiatry is, taught us how to run a business. We learn, a lot of people learn kind of on the fly or from some mentors if you're lucky enough or smart enough to kind of
Yeah.
talk to people about that. And I get it. I practiced for 7 years before I moved into this. I was at a big orthopedic group and I did some help make some marketing decisions. I didn't necessarily do it myself, but most of us learn kind of marketing the hard way, kind of paying the tuition to kind of the school of hard knocks, trial and error. The 5-day course I created, Jeff and I put together with Jeff here is really designed to give people a little bit of a foundation to kind of clear up things a little bit. Some things you never got in residency or in school without requiring to become a marketing expert. Sometimes people will have a general sense of social media or a little bit of marketing from like a user perspective and think they kind of understand what to do and maybe understand a little bit, but there's so much under the surface when it comes to building websites, doing Google ads the right way, putting together newsletters. It's not rocket science, but people have busy lives, taking care of patients, running a business, trying to have a family, have a life outside of practice. So, what I try to do is, kind of work with those folks to try to make it a little bit more clear and save them some time.
The best marketing campaign dies at the front desk.
Well, everyone's got to be on board, right? Like, you have to have a strong team culture. And, I can run the best Google Ads campaign in the world, but if you have a front desk that doesn't know how to answer the call, you've wasted money. And the patient calls, asking about shockwave therapy for their heel pain, and your staff says, let me check if we do that, or they don't know if that's something you provide. It puts them on hold. The patient doesn't want that. It's already a,
No.
a negative experience by, so they probably wouldn't know you do shockwave, but maybe they don't know all the things you need to do. So
Yeah.
really your front desk education and having them trained up is super important, because that patient is going to book with someone else if they don't get an answer right away. People have moved to this kind of like on demand lifestyle. I'm guilty of it. Like I order my Costco through Instacart and it just shows up in my door. And when I have to tell the driver, one block over because the GPS system they're using is wrong,
Yeah.
like, and then they're a block away. Like I want my stuff now, or on Amazon Prime or
Right.
Netflix. People expect that, unfortunately, and it's kind of seeped into healthcare. So
Yeah.
marketing isn't just about making the phone ring. It's about what happens when it does. And that's why, like I said, the email course you put together covers kind of that system, and it's not just ads. It's about having those systems in place with your staff to make a great patient experience, so they'll make an appointment in the first place and then hopefully come back in the future.
Definitely. Last one. Private practice has advantages. You just need to use them.
Yeah, so I'm not going to trash you in your large multi-specialty clinic. That's not what I'm here to do with this one, but there's
It's
definitely
okay. You can trash me.
there's definitely some advantages though, right? Like, look, I know how I was in an orthopedic group. I know what it feels like to be in hospital systems, or, obviously there's a lot of private equity groups that have some large advantages, right? Larger budgets,
Mhm.
better referral networks, some would say, but bigger budgets and more staff, you know, but private practice have something that they don't. You can be more agile and you can niche down in ways that larger groups can't. You and your clinic kind of are the brand. You when you own your practice, you kind of determine the roadmap and what you try to make people think or feel about who you are and what you're trying to do. So if things aren't working, like I said, you can pivot to a specific niche. You can build real relationship with patients, who become your biggest referral sources. You can do that somewhat in multi-specialty care, but like you are the face of the practice. And you're kind of lending trust to maybe an associate and stuff, but it's a little tougher, for if a large multi-specialty group has 8 different podiatrists, there's a little bit of kind of intermingling they're going to have to do with patient care at times, which can be beneficial if they take a lot of call and such. But the practice that I work with, aren't really trying to outspend the big groups. That's not the goal there. It's not to outspend. They're trying to kind of outposition themselves by owning that local market online. So, there's definitely some advantage of being a small practice, and just have to have the knowledge and know what you want to build, and have a strategy. And that's what I try to do with the people I work with.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you said you are your own brand. And I can't imagine, well, I guess I can. People do it. They are their own brand, and then they just hand their brand over to some faceless marketing agency with some generic, crappy website. And that's your brand. That's who you're relying on putting your word out into the world about who you are and what you do. It just feels like you build up all this momentum, you build this practice, you build this brand of who you are and who you want to be. And then the marketing can be, sometimes it's successful, but sometimes it's just a big flop. And then what? Now it's just an interesting thing that all of this stuff and all this passion, your whole life, and you own this practice and it's your brand and it's everything. And then here it is, world, and it's just a big zero arriving on dead on arrival. So I mean, I think it's one thing to have all of this, and it's another to deliver it to the world, whether it be through Google or Facebook or local ads or billboards, or people still run newspaper ads or radio ads, or the radio is still broadcasting. Somebody must be listening to the radio. I don't know who, but somebody out there is listening to the radio right now. There are many different ways to get your word out about who you are and what you do. And why not let Jim McDannald help you out? So if people want more information, podiatrygrowth.com/pod patrol for more information.
No, that's a great, Jeff. I totally agree with you. I think it's one of those things that people feel stuck sometimes. They want to tell their story. Everyone's got a unique story, right? About who you are, what you want to do, and where you want to take your practice. And that's what we really try to reveal. Either, in the kind of the free assessment call, like I said, happy to have that with anybody. Try to kind of nail down, who you are, what you want to do. If you want to get more tactical, we want to go, deeper in depth. If you want to kind of learn a little bit of marketing, that 5 email course is a great way to do it. Like you said, you can sign up at podiatrygrowth.com/pod patrol. And then, if they want to go even deeper, that online practice x-ray is there to really get strategic with the assessment, analyzing, what you're doing now, what you can do in the future, and a clear plan to put a strategy into place to take people where they want to go with the practice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I think this has been supremely helpful for anybody who owns their own practice or anybody who's doing marketing and maybe they're hearing it and thinking, well, I'm doing all those things that they talked about not doing. And so maybe they can make some slight adjustments and get themselves on the correct course with some of that free stuff and free conversations. And maybe they need a little more in-depth help from you, and you're there to offer those things as well. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Pod Patrol with your host, Dr. Jeff Dikis. We'll see you guys next time.
Disclaimer. Opinions expressed are those of the content creators and do not represent any employer or entity. The information shared is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice or used in any legal capacity, including establishing standards of care. All efforts have been made to comply with HIPAA regulations. No guarantees are made regarding the accuracy of statements or opinions provided. Interaction with the podcast does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please enjoy this podcast responsibly.